Hello again. It's time for another vlog, and thanks very much for everyone who's been watching so far. It's really, really nice to know that I'm not talking to myself and that people are tuning in. Although I am doing a bit of talking to myself at the minute because I'm trying to learn these lines for the Under My Bed charity gig that I'm doing in the middle of March. Please check out www.undermybed.ie for all the information on that. I'd love to see you there if you can come along. Um, so what are we going to talk about today? Okay, well, first things first, I'm going to do a book review, and a little bit of a book review with a difference, because this book review, it's Adele Parks' book, first of all, the state we're in, and it was my first Adele Parks book, but it won't be my last. I really enjoyed it. She writes really, really beautiful, emotional, charged, compelling stories about real people with real lives, which I really enjoy. She's not afraid to tackle some hard subjects too. Again, really enjoyed that. And I actually, it was the audio version of this book that I had, which I listened to on my phone. You can see here. And I'm a huge fan of audiobooks. I listen to them all the time when I'm doing housework. It makes ironing go a lot quicker. And my kind of guide to whether or not an audiobook is working for me is that if I'm actually actively looking to do housework, which I hate, well, so I can listen to a few more chapters, well, then I kind of know, okay, this is a good book. And this was a bit like this for Adele. I flew through it. I really, really enjoyed it, and I kept looking for more excuses to listen so I could get to the end and find out what happened. It's narrated by Antonio Beamish, and she did a great job. I know sometimes it can be hard to get used to an actor and actress's voice as they do the audio read-throughs, but she did an excellent job. So the story centres around really Joe and Dean, a couple who meet on a flight going to Chicago, and they both have very different lives. They're very, very different people, and it's their story and the story of their families and their parents and all around them and how they're connected. It's bittersweet. I won't lie. There are parts of it that are really, really, really sad. There are parts that made me snort with laughter. I really enjoyed it. Jo's character, she's one of these characters that stayed with me actually when I closed the last page, because she's quite different. She is self-absorbed to the highest level. That, I've never read a character like her, in that she is so focused on. She really believes in happy ever after. She really believes in romantic love, which is wonderful. But so much so that she actually hurts a lot of people in the process, including herself, because she's so focused on this goal. But she's really, really, really honest, and one of the most endearing parts of her character is that she just says exactly what she thinks. And there are people like that, aren't they, who just like, whatever pops into their brain pops out of their mouth, and they have no kind of thought about, oops, I maybe shouldn't have said that. So I cringed for some of the things she gets up to. It's like, oh my goodness, you didn't just say that, you didn't just do that, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it. But I cheered her on in so many ways too. I really enjoyed her character. Dean's character, that she ends up sitting beside on this flight to Chicago, at first glance, I thought, he's going to really annoy me, because I hate characters who are written, the male hero is this rich, rich, rich executive, devastatingly handsome, but who's got this damaged past that this woman can kind of save him from. But this story was done with a bit of a difference, and Dean's character felt a bit more real to me. I thought that Adele did a great job in showing us piece by piece more about him. It made him very believable, and I was really cheering him on by the end. I really liked him. I thought he was a very likeable male lead. So really a great book. Stick with it. The first few chapters I found hard to get into, and I think it was because the story skipped from the 80s then up to the 2000s. But as soon as it kind of joined Joe's part of the story, I was completely absorbed. So really recommend that. That's Adele Parks, The State We're In. And if you haven't tried audiobooks before, give it a go. Really enjoyed them. Right, so I'm going to actually do some writing tips today, a couple of writing tips. But the first thing is that I've been sharing some random facts about me, and this actually is going to start off my writing tips for you, because one of the random facts I shared, I want to share with you, is the fact that I actually wrote the first draft of Beyond Grace's Rainbow in 2 weeks. That sounds mad, doesn't it? But I did. Basically, I had 2 weeks holidays to use up with work, and at the time I had nobody to go on holidays with. It was at the last minute I was told, use these holidays up or lose them. And all my friends and family had no holidays to use. So I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll write this book that I've always been talking about writing. So I took myself off to Florida on my own. And as I said, I was single, I had no kids, so it was a different time. I couldn't do it now. I've got responsibilities. But at the time, I had no responsibilities other than to myself. So went to Florida for 2 weeks, shopped, sunbathed, but wrote for hours every day, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours till the wee hours of the morning. And I managed to I was putting out maybe 5,000 to 10,000 words every night. But I came home 2 weeks later with a suntan, a bulging suitcase, and also 90,000 words of Beyond Grace's Rainbow, the first draft. Now, I won't lie, the first third of it was pants because, oh my God, I made all the usual rookie mistakes. My points of view were moving from one to the other at a wicked rate, and I was going from the past to the present tense, and I made every mistake possible. But at least I had it written, and it was the first draft down, and it became Beyond Grace's Rainbow, as you've read or perhaps are yet to read. So what I would say to everybody out there, my first writing tip to you is, if you have a dream to write, if you want to write a book, just do it. You might not be able to go to Florida like I did for 2 weeks. I can't do that anymore. I can't take myself off for 2 weeks. I have responsibilities. But what you can do is, do you know that saying, get out of your own way? Well, that's kind of what I did and what I do now. I've got out of my own way, and I don't allow myself any excuses. If I need to write, and I need to write every day, that means I need to get up early, I need to go to bed late, I need to let some things go. I don't have as much of a social life, I don't party as much as I used to, but I do the most important things. My husband is well looked after, my children are well looked after, I do, of course, take care of home, but I find the time to write. There's no excuses. Writing has to happen. So you need to get out of your own way. If you want to write, just do it. Find the reason, find the way to do it. And if you write every day, and if you can do a couple of thousand words every day, even 1,000 words every day, 1,000 words every day, in 90 days you'll have your first draft of your book written. Yeah, could be life-changing for you. So just do it. And I do know the first thing that happens when you make a decision like that, then you start putting roadblocks in your own way, don't you? You start getting hyperventilating and thinking like, I can't do this. I can't. The reason I can't do it is I've got kids, I've got sick parents, I've got, work, I've got all these reasons why I can't write. And we all have those reasons. But all I'm saying to you is, if you really want to write, even if it's only 500 words a day, even if it's only 1,000 words a week, and it takes you 90 weeks, it takes you nearly 2 years to get the book written. At least in 2 years you'll have it written. And in 2 years' time, you won't be sitting here saying, I didn't try. So get out of your own way and start writing. And the last tip I'm going to share with you before I finish up is, I've been asked this before actually, about how to make characters more real. And sometimes characters just don't work and they seem flat and boring. And so what I do, I always put my characters in real life situations. So whatever's going on in my life, if I'm at a committee meeting for the childcare centre, I'm on the committee, when I come home, I'll think about maybe something that happened at the committee meeting. I'll say, well, how would May have reacted in that situation? How would Sarah? How would Grace? And I'll think about my lead, my lead characters in my books, and that actually rounds them out for me. When I was writing The Road Back Home, which is my third novel, as yet unpublished, I used to do that a lot as I was trying to get into the heads of the characters. And in particular, because I wrote from the point of view of a male for the first time, of two men actually, both Ollie and his son, Ollie and his father, Pops. So what I found myself doing was that if I was in a situation, I'd just try and imagine what would a guy do in that situation as opposed to me, and try and make them more real that way. And it really works. If you just put them in everyday situations and say, what would they do? And I can remember on one occasion, actually, I had a bit of an altercation in Tesco's car park. Really not a very nice guy, and we kind of at the same time came to a parking spot at the very same minute, and I kind of waved to him as if to say, you go ahead, but then he waved and I thought he was saying, no, you go ahead. So I pulled in, but quite clearly he wasn't saying you go ahead, because he came to started banging on the window and screaming all sorts of abuse at me. It was quite scary. I had the kids in the back, so I pulled out, gave him the spot, obviously legged it as quickly as I could. But it kind of shook me because he was so violent over a car park space. It just seemed ridiculous. And it was a genuine mistake. I thought he was waving me in. Anyhow, I left the car park, went home, and started to think about all the things I should have said to this guy. Do you ever do that? After an argument, you become very witty in your own head, don't you? Well, anyhow, that's what I was doing. But then I started to put my characters from the road back home in that situation. And I was thinking, what would they have done? And was kind of interesting is that Pops, who is the grandfather and father in the road back home, and he's a very wise and also a very clever man. And I realised he would have probably said something like this, which is a Steve Maraboli quote, and he would have probably said to him, the volume of your voice does not increase the validity of your argument, sir. And I thought, wow, that's really good. I should have said that. But I used that line in The Road Back Home because it was definitely a line that Pops would have said, and it kind of added to his character. So really do that. I hope you don't end up in an altercation in Tesco's car park, but if you do, maybe throw your characters into that and see what they would have done. Even your baddies and your goodies, you know, maybe if you had a badass, what would he do to someone like that? Maybe he wouldn't drive away. Anyhow, so try that. And if all else fails, sometimes if your character just isn't working and if it seems boring, don't be afraid to kill them off. And I don't mean putting a hit on them. I don't mean that. If you're I just mean get rid of them altogether. And I did that in The Life You Left. One of the characters, Rose, just wasn't working. My editor spotted it before I did, and she said to me, she's got no purpose, she needs to go. And she was right, which is why she's the editor and I'm the writer. So I got rid of Rose because she was boring. But what happened then was something quite beautiful, because this new character came to life called Ruby. And I love Ruby now. In The Life You Left, she's a great character. And that was thanks to the wisdom of my editor at the time, of Charlotte, of which I'll always be grateful. So what I would say to you is, if a character's not working, maybe it's time for them to get rid of them. So that's it for me. So that's all there is today. Hope everyone has a lovely, 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 lovely weekend, whatever you're doing, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.